Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's video we're going to be trying out a new laser that I'm super excited about because this thing is so versatile, way more than you expect, and we're going to see if this might actually be the best one to use for business. Whether that's to start an actual laser business where you sell products that you can possibly engrave or cut out using the laser, or you can create or engrave things to accompany a different kind of business. Basically, the possibilities are endless. It's only the imagination that might stop you. So when WeCreat reached out and asked if I wanted to try the laser and I had a little look into it, I instantly got very excited and curious about the machine, of course. And I had to say yes because I haven't tried a machine quite like this before. So the machine is a WeCreat Lumos 3-watt infrared and 10-watt diode portable laser engraver. So a bit of a mouthful. But basically the name itself tells you a lot about the different things you can do with this and how versatile it is. So first of all, this has actually got two lasers in one. So it's a 3-watt infrared and it's a 10-watt diode laser. Usually you would just get them separately, but this is 2-in-1, which is the first thing I'm very excited about, because that itself means you can engrave onto many more things than you could if it's just one type of laser. And of course you can cut as well. And basically we're going to be trying a bit of everything just to give it a bit of a test and play around with it while we get more comfortable and get to know it. Because there's always that learning curve, and each laser you kind of have to get to know before you start getting comfortable with how to use it properly. And just a heads up, along with the laser, they also sent me a couple of accessories to try out with it. So the first one is a slider that makes it possible to engrave or cut larger pieces than what the basic laser itself can do. Because basically the slider helps move whatever you want to engrave or cut under the laser. So that greatly increases the working area. And then also a rotary where you can engrave things like cups, tumblers, and of course even rings as well, which is definitely what I'm most interested in. And they also sent along the AirGuard Cube Fume Extractor, which is a huge plus as well because it just helps keep the air kind of clean and extract all the possible fumes that come from whatever you're engraving or cutting into. So that's the variety we're going to be looking at, and like I said, we're trying a bit of everything. And this is basically just a bit of a play to kind of get a feel of what this machine is actually capable of. Now of course, there will be links in the description box down below along with codes. So do feel free to have a look if you want to check out this machine for yourself. So they also sent a little material kit along with the machine, which I think is always the best place to start, to be honest. There's a bit of variety of some materials you can play around with. And the first thing we tried was the metallic business card that they sent. These are always a really good place to start to try a laser, I feel, because one, they're really cheap basically. You get a lot for very little money if you want to just buy them yourself. So it's easily something you can kind of try and work on, but then throw away because if something doesn't work out as you're getting to know the machine, because you're always going to have failures as well. It's not always going to just work out perfectly. That's just kind of the name of the game. So this was the very first thing that we made, and honestly, quick and easy. And like I just said, you're always going to have fails, but this is not one of them. It was just a random image we found on the software, which by the way, the software for this machine also is their own software. So you can use Lightburn, which is the third-party software that you can use with pretty much any laser, but they actually have their own that comes with the machine, so you can choose to use that. So we actually wanted to try and use that as well to see what it was like. And first impressions and experience throughout, it was actually really positive. Now you can use it on a free basis, but you can also pay for a premium level of the software where you'll get a bit more access to some things. But honestly, if you don't want to do that, you do not have to. It still works along with the machine on a free basis. And that is the only thing we used. And honestly, from just trialing out here at the beginning, we were very impressed by that software as well. It is surprisingly actually very easy to use. Obviously, still a learning curve, but not nearly as much as some other ones that we've tried. You kind of can get on with things much more quickly. And it was actually just very enjoyable using the software. So anyway, back to the business card here. We just did, like I said, a little image, a stock image that they had. And it turned out really lovely. So talking about the software again a little bit, this is also something I really love about the software, because if you've seen any previous videos of mine, you might have seen doing material tests, which is something I basically would always recommend that you do on the material that you're going to be making your final piece into, ideally, because every material you're going to get different results, even if you have, say, the same settings. But those material tests are always something you kind of have to do on your own separately. But this software already has it built in, and I was kind of shocked when I saw that. I was like, what the heck? it has basically for every material, because you choose what material that you want to work on, and it's a really cool feature as well. So that was kind of the first part of the software where I was really impressed and thought, this is brilliant, and it just saves you time as well from having to do all that yourself with all the materials. And in that case, also the material itself, you're kind of wasting less of it by having to do a bunch of material tests before you can even start. So that's built in, and it's easy to navigate. And there might be some questions about what does this mean or that mean, but it's easy to figure out. Plus, there's also instructional videos and everything online, of course. So if you do have any questions, that is always very easy to then find the answers. But we were very happy and impressed with this first little test. And also, there's no warping, there's no anything. Because sometimes if you've got too high power or the laser's too strong or something, it can warp, because this is quite thin material, of course. But this, there was none of that, yet the result was still nice. So we went on from that. And then we thought we also wanted to try wood out a bit. So basically engraving onto wood and also cutting wood. Because that is the huge plus about this machine, I feel as well, that it can both engrave and cut. And because it has those two different kinds of lasers. So we just did a little, again, stock image, a nice giraffe, of try to engrave onto wood. And this was the first one, so obviously as you can see, that was a lot lighter, which also there is no right or wrong in how to do it. It's all about what result you want as well. So if you want a lighter result for something, that is perfectly achievable. But of course, if you want it darker and more of a contrast or something, that is also something you can work on. That is the whole part of figuring out your machine and your materials as well, about what settings you need to use basically. But again, those built-in material tests are really useful for that. So also, nice first impression with this. It is super detailed, I found. Very crisp and clear. And obviously these are quite small. So we did also try and actually cut them out from the wood. This is about 1 mil thick, I think. It was also sent with the machine. And I will just say that some of these broke a bit, but that is not the laser's fault. So we cut out the giraffes as well. We actually started with the smaller one here. And obviously the tail broke off, as you can see. But that is because on the actual image itself, that is very fine, and basically it singes the wood a bit, of course, because technically it is burning it, and it just was too thin and it fell off. And the same thing ended up happening to this, but obviously this was just a stock image, so this obviously just needs to be bigger to kind of give a better effect. And also the legs are quite thin, but again, that is the image as we chose it. Just thought the giraffe was really cute. So we were quite impressed with this, and again, basically first tries. This was the first one, like I said, for the engraving. Quite a nice light engraving, and then here we got it much darker to try and get that effect as well. And the cutting out as well, you don't have loads of singeing around the edges. You have a little bit down here on the legs, of course, but that's because they're so thin, which is also then why the tail broke, because that was even thinner. But otherwise, it's nice, crisp, clean cut. So I would definitely say this machine works really well with cutting the wood as well. And of course, you could also go thicker than that. Now in the material kit, there was also some dog tags. There was one stainless steel one here where we put in Gizmo, which is one of our babies. And I'm going to see if it shows up on camera, but this is actually a bit of a copper or bronze engraving. So it's actually got some color to it, which is another thing with this laser. I'll get a little bit further into it later on, but color engraving is also something in general I'm super excited about and very interested in. And it can a lot of the time be difficult to kind of maneuver, but this machine also makes that easier. So we'll talk about that later, as I said. But if you can just catch it, it's not like a dark engraving, which of course you can achieve, but that all again depends on the settings you use, which is what you can then play around with. But this is actually a bit of a like a not quite coppery, a bit more bronzy engraving. So that was really cool. And still, again, really crisp and clear, which I'm probably going to keep mentioning throughout this because that is also a feature about this machine. Everything is coming out really crisp and clear. Super impressed. There was also some anodized aluminium dog tags here where we just put Newt, that's our other baby. Did that first because I thought we'd start with kind of my least favorite one of them if it doesn't quite work out. And that was just this kind of gold yellow one. And obviously you can see the engraving, so it worked the first time. Super clear and crisp and beautiful. Obviously it's just the contrast against the background is not quite that strong because of the lighter color of the dog tag itself, but that is a really lovely result. But this one, you have a bigger contrast, so obviously it stands out even more. And again, just really nicely engraved. I am super impressed with the details of this. Basically, if you think of it like photography, you could kind of call it the pixels, which is kind of the quality of the image. So that's how I like to think of it, because that makes more sense in my head. So again, also Super lovely result here. There was also in the kit a little pouch, kind of, pretty sure it's faux leather, but leather and faux leather you can actually engrave and cut as well. So we tried one side first, and this is that result. Basically, again, just a stock image from the software. Oh, a little bear head, and it is quite a nice result. It's a bit on the faint side, but again, you can then adjust the settings more, but you can definitely still see it. And it didn't go through this one, so it stayed on this side, even though it's actually quite thin material, this. But on the other side, we thought we'd try again, change the settings, and this one actually cut through, because obviously we upped the settings. So it is capable of that too, but still super detailed, and you can clearly see what it is. So that is something else we're also quite interested in, is leather, or faux leather actually, being able to engrave and cut that. So we also tried a couple of sheets of that. These are just our own, because we're kind of wanting to experiment and play around with it. This is more for other purposes than jewelry, but I just thought I'd show you anyway. We started with the black, just two little cats, and you can see that nicely. Again, it's just playing around with the settings more to see what results you prefer. And then we tried the white one. So you have a darker result there, which obviously stands out more because you got a higher contrast. But then there it's more faint, but you can still see it. And still nice and crisp and clean. You can even see the little whiskers, just see how fine they are. Super cool. And then obviously the pink. Again, you get two different results here with slightly different settings. And just like the others, those little whiskers are showing up, super detailed. So very pleased with this, and we're going to keep playing around with that more. In case you're wondering, this purpose is more for my crochet journey. I'm interested in trying to make little tags that you can basically attach to clothes or hats, scarves, whatever you're making if you're selling and things like that. So that is something we're experimenting with. I might share more of that on my actual crochet channel. So now in the material kit, there was also some other materials that we didn't try, but there's some different papers and cardboard type things and like that plywood that I showed you already with the giraffes. There's some bigger pieces here, but these are actually meant for the machine. So that is because for something like this, it actually has a camera as well built in. So that's another huge plus for when you're framing things and obviously deciding what design you want to engrave, putting that onto exactly where you want it engraving on your material. You can do that using the camera. Again, a super handy feature that I love, and that's just part of this machine as well. So these pieces are just meant for if you need to, say, recalibrate the camera or something like that. But there was also a sheet of metal, which I'm trying to not show you the whole thing because we started out doing just our own little material test as well, just to see what would happen basically. And look at the different colors there. They are so like bronze metallic looking and super metallic as well. So not like matte or anything. Really cool result. And then I think that one too. Got some darkness there. Now I'm covering this because this is part of the color engraving as well, and I am super excited about some of these results. So basically how this works is with this machine, there's also a specific color engraving feature. So that is also part of the software and everything, and you basically start out making an overall material test, you could say. And again, it shows you how to do everything detailed. But then on this first initial one, you then find which one you feel has the most color. For us, that was up here. You can hopefully see a bit there, there's blue in that. But then you take that number and then basically dive into that specifically, where you then do another material test around that number, because that's where the color was showing. And then you can see what else you can get. And look at those. That is just beautiful. And look at that purple. That is me. I was super excited by that. So working off of that number I showed you on the other side, you can then do a more specific material test around that area with those settings and then see the variety you can get. And then obviously you can use this and refer back to. Be aware though about the material that you're using can also change the result, of course. But this is stainless steel, it came with that material kit. So you can easily get things like gold, copper tones and things like that. But obviously the typical blues that are so beautiful, but look at the purples here as well. I am super excited about that. That is definitely something I will be playing around more with. I love color engraving in general, but those purples, I'm not sure I've seen that before on previous machines that I've tried. So that is going to be more experiment with that in the future. So another thing I'm super excited about, this machine just kind of keeps impressing. Now, aside from the material kit there, I also had a couple of my own things I wanted to try and see how the machine would do with. So I've had this dog tag shaped blank for quite a while that is coated in black. As you can probably see, you can barely see anything there. It's just a black hole almost. But anyway, so as you can see, it's just black, except for what you then do when you engrave here is you go in and remove that coating, because it is stainless steel, but it then has a coating, in this case that's black. And this is just my personal favorite quote: yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That is why it is called present. So that just is something that's, since I heard it, basically, it's always meant a lot to me. And I just really like that then written in like a cursive font like this. And then you could wear this on a simple necklace, always have it on you. And then maybe sometimes if you just need reminding of something, you can just read that to yourself and it's always on you. So as you can see, this turned out super well as well. So because obviously it's quite a long text and blanks for jewelry are typically on the smaller side, you have to make the text quite small, especially if you want a lot on there like this. So this is quite a long text, obviously. And for that reason, the text itself gets squished pretty small. But look how crisp and clear it still is. You can still so clearly read it. So I'm super happy with that. So just another thing it did well. Now, another thing I've had for a while that I was super excited to try with this machine, because I've had an idea with these. So let me just show you what it is. It is basically some stainless steel puzzle pieces, and they were bought like this. So they are all the same, as you can see, but when I first got them, I really like the fact that they all actually fit together. So you can obviously use them individually. They do have the holes in some different places there. Just use them individually. But this was the first one I got where they all fit together like this, and I was really excited about the idea of actually engraving onto them as one piece, like a puzzle, that you then take apart. And then my idea is that obviously there's 6 pieces here, so you engrave something that takes up the whole space, and then say if you're a friend group or family of 6 people, really close people or something, you can then get one piece each, when you can wear it as jewelry, on your keychain, whatever you prefer. And then whenever you come together, you can put all the puzzle pieces back together and basically complete whatever's been engraved on it. Of course, if it's personalized or something like that, that would be lovely. So that was just my idea, and I really like the idea. So I've been holding on to these for a while because I wanted to try and save them for what I felt was going to be just right, and when I came up with something I thought would be nice on it, and I thought I would try it with this machine. So because I only have this one set of them and I didn't want to try something ideally and have it go wrong and then, you know, waste all the pieces here, and I would love to try and get a finished piece. I do have some other puzzle pieces of the same material, so it's stainless steel, and I have these other individual ones that again use for pendants, earrings, charms, keychains, whatever you want. Now this one was a bit thicker, so again, even that is something that can affect the results, but that is why you have to kind of play around with it. But I still thought it's the same finish, nice and shiny like them other ones for the set, and it's stainless steel. So try and engrave on this one first, and then hopefully those settings would match this well, so it would turn out nicely. So that was the plan, and we ended up basically doing a couple of G's on here. There's a G, if you can see that, just a little bit faintly there. Again, obviously, we've then engraved over it since, but we put a G on each side there. But then we started doing some little squares to purposely try some different settings to see what result we would actually end up getting. Because this piece was already kind of wasted, as in having tried it before, and it didn't go quite as we wanted. So we just thought, take as much advantage of this space on this as possible without having to waste too much other stuff. So yeah, this was the side we started on. So actually on this we got a lot of, again, kind of bronze colors, which is super cool. It is so cool that you can engrave different colors, I think. And here we also tried the different lasers to see what different results we could get. And we did end up there getting a really beautiful, really dark grey, or I would say almost black. And I really liked that colour. So we took the settings that we ended up being the happiest with from this, and then started the engraving on the piece here, the full piece. So let's just make the puzzle up, shall we? So basically, that quote I mentioned before that I put on this dog tag, it's the same one, because I really like that quote. And I thought that would be kind of a nice thing to put on something with that idea of like 6 different people, family, friends, whatever. And then you have one piece each, and then when you come back together, you can kind of put all the puzzle pieces together. And I just thought it kind of worked well together. So here we go, finished the puzzle. So this is how it turned out. So it can be a little bit hard to see because they are very shiny, very shiny finish, which is beautiful. But this is what it looks like. And of course, you could kind of say individually, each of them doesn't really make sense because you only have part of the saying. So obviously a lot is missing, but that isn't the whole point, the metaphor, whatever you want to call it, of then when you come back together, you can put all the puzzle pieces together and it becomes complete. And then you can read the whole quote again. So I really like that idea, and this turned out beautifully. Let me just try and lift it a bit. Some of the pieces so you can hopefully see more with the light. I really like how it turned out. It's kind of different at different angles, which is obviously the material itself that causes that as well, because it's so shiny as well. Different angles will kind of give you different looks. So some you could see looks kind of lighter than the background, but then some there it looks darker, which is actually how it is, but you just get different looks from different angles, which I really like as well. So I'm just really pleased with how this turned out. I'm super happy with the final result. I did debate about maybe adding, my idea was also maybe adding like a star or heart, one on each piece, but then as a whole it would look kind of random, but just to make sure there was one on each piece. But we just did the text for now. We can always go back and add that to it if we want to. So yeah, I'm super happy with how this turned out and everything so far. Now there was another thing I wanted to try, and it might seem a little bit strange, but again, this is something I've had for quite a while and kind of just waited for the right time to try it out. An idea that I wanted to do. So it's pencils, so it's obviously that's not really jewelry related, but my thought was, I've always kind of played around with the idea of saying, adding freebies to orders and things like that, but I never really knew what to do. At one point I did then get the idea, what about pencils? Because, well, you can never not use a pencil. I mean, anyone can use a pencil, can't they? But then make them so they match my branding. Obviously they're purple, but they're blank. So this would be the starting point, but I would then engrave onto them to make them kind of fit my branding. You could say obviously add the logo, but I kind of wanted to more add something else, something that would be kind of funny or would fit the theme of, say, making jewelry. Now the thought is obviously a pencil you can also use anything you can think of, but if you like, say, sketching out what you want to make, so making sketches of your ideas before you actually go and make them, you can use a pencil for that. So for instance, you have an idea for making a piece of jewelry, sketch it out first, handy dandy. But I then wanted to engrave onto them. So my idea was coming up with some kind of funny little sayings or something to put on there. So I think this was the first one we did. It says busy making magic, because you're making magic with your pencil, whatever comes out of you creatively. I just thought that was kind of a cute little saying. And so the first one here turned out, it's nice. And by the way, this font is from that software as well. I love this font. I discovered my literally new favorite font, and I have to check out and see if it's in other programs because I'm hoping it is. I really love this font. Anyway, and we did a second one here that actually turned out better. So the other one turned out well. It just actually could have maybe just gone through the outer coating here a little bit more. So I'm pretty sure with this second one we just did a second pass with the same settings, because that's also something you can do. You can do multiple passes rather than change the settings all the time. What you could also try and do is do multiple passes to see if that makes a difference enough, because you don't always have to change the settings themselves, like the power and the speed. You can also do more passes with lower settings, which I'm pretty sure is what we did here, and this turned out so nice. Really crisp and clear, and a lot more contrasting than that one, because obviously it broke through that outer coating just a little bit more. So I'm really happy with that one. Busy making magic, I like that. Now actually the first one we did was this with my name. Again, that was just to try it out. It went a little bit too far down one side because actually these are triangle pencils, which is obviously a little bit unusual and awkward rather than being, what are they normally, 5 sides or 6 sides? I'm not sure. So at one point obviously they start going down to the next side a little bit, but that's why you gotta line it up and frame it nicely as well, which again you can use the camera for. So this one says, this is my magic wand, so along the same lines as Busy Making Magic, this is my magic wand that you write or you draw whatever with. So I've quite liked that as well. I'm really pleased with how they turned out, and again, so crisp and clear and legible. So did a few of those just so I can maybe keep one or two for myself because I quite like that, and obviously they're purple, they fit me perfectly. So we did a few of these pencils as well, and I'm really pleased with that. So obviously this is wood that you're engraving onto. Obviously it's coated with something as well, but mainly it's wood because of the outer protection for the lead inside. So that was pretty much it for the basic laser itself. Now of course we also wanted to try some of the accessories there that they did send. So the slider, like I mentioned, is basically so you're able to engrave or cut a bigger area than what you're able to with just the laser itself. So the whole point is it can slide whatever your material is sideways along underneath the laser. And again, I was really impressed with this. It was super easy to set up. It came pre-assembled. You don't have to assemble anything of any of these things, by the way, which I super much appreciate. I really enjoy when that's the case, so you don't have to do a bunch of assembling first, because that can be a bit intimidating sometimes. But this is all fully assembled. You of course have to remove packaging and all that, but otherwise, and it's easy to handle and attach to the laser. And again, in the software, it easily swaps over to using that slider, and it's easy to understand and manage and get to work. So again, with that, we just did another pencil because actually, while we were making those first pencils, I got an idea for another design for a pencil, but the whole pencil fit underneath the laser with the outer protection on it, but not the whole length of the pencil was able to be engraved because obviously it needs to fit underneath that square area that the camera can see as well. So I thought we'll try and use the slider for it because I got the idea to make a design for a pencil where you write the word down towards the end here. Like I tried to go up with something like creatometer or creative bar or magic bar or something that would be like a measuring of how much magic or creativity is left, which is the pencil itself. And then as you shave the pencil, you would then shave off little dots like this, which then gradually empties the bar from creativity or magic or whatever it is. And then as it gets further and further down, you get to the bottom here, you've emptied the pencil from its magic or creativity, and you have to get a new one. So I really like the idea of that, and it just popped in my head while we were doing the other ones. But obviously that design would be too long for being able to make with just the laser itself, so we tried doing that with the slider accessory, and that worked well. Now it is a little bit crooked, as you can see the dots go off a little bit to the edge, but that was my fault because I lined it up against the edges on the slider and thought that's perfect, but I didn't account for this metal bit, so this part actually was a little bit closer to the edge to obviously try and keep it straight, because that metal part is an add-on, so obviously that keeps that end a little bit out. So that was my fault. I didn't really think of that prior, but I still really like the result. I ended up writing creativity on here just because I thought that fit nicely, and I really like this idea. As you sharpen it, you empty the creativity level more and more until you empty it completely, and like I said, you have to get a new one. So that was just a little idea, but it worked with the slider, and of course you can also use it for bigger things like making signs and anything you can think of that's too big to fit under the laser itself, basically. So that is something that makes the machine so much more versatile as well, is these accessories here. Obviously the slider being one of them. There's also a rotary, which they also sent. Now that obviously for me is the most exciting thing about engraving onto rings, which is what we did. But you can of course also engrave bottles, mugs, cups, whatever you can think of that's round of some sort. But this rotary itself is also really versatile because obviously those are big things, and whenever you're engraving onto anything, you want the base to be stable and rotate correctly so it's nice and straight and exactly where you want it engraving. But on the other hand, rings are really small, but this rotary can manage both of those things. So you have different attachments you can use to grip onto whatever material you're engraving into. So for instance, the ring here is obviously very small, and if you want to engrave on the outside, ideally you want to grip the ring from the inside so you have the whole surface on the outside available. So There's some smaller attachments you can use for that. Or of course, you can also then tilt the rotary at an angle, so you could grip it from the outside, but then actually engrave on the inside. So that is also something I'm super into the idea of. So obviously whether that's kind of personalized, whatever you can think of to put on the inside, or dates, or a logo even, who knows. So you can do all that with a rotary as well. And of course, like I said, bigger objects as well. And then just swap out whatever tool you're using to grip onto the object. So this turned out really nicely. These are stainless steel rings, and this one is then blue coated, of course. So again, you're removing the outer coating there when you're engraving onto it, which then reveals, in this case, I put let them, and you can see that nice and clearly, super detailed, nice and straight. It worked out perfectly. Again, super quick and easy to set up, and there wasn't really much faffing about. Like I said, you can always look up instructional videos about how to do these things. That's what we did, and it just ended up working super easily and quickly. So everything pretty much works out of the box. Of course, you have to plug things in, but other than that, I really can't say that enough, how quick and easy everything is just out of the box to be able to use. And again, the software, honestly, equally so as well. Very quick to learn. So that is basically what we did, playing around and trying out this machine. I am super impressed with it. The fact that it's so versatile, can do all these different things. It's 2 lasers in one, and on top of that, it's also actually portable and compact. This is like a desktop laser basically. You can pretty much put it anywhere and it will probably fit. You can also use it portably, just FYI. You can get some other accessories and then actually use it handheld, so that's another cool feature if that's something that's of interest. Or even something like bringing it to a market if you do markets and engrave basically on the go and in front of people as they've made their order. So I think that's also a really cool thing to be able to do. So as you can see, this is then taking its new place in my studio, because I'm definitely going to keep playing around with this and hopefully do a bit more business wise with it. And I want to have it easily accessible. So thank you so much to WeCreat for sending me this to try out and of course share with you. I really appreciate it, and I'm so impressed with this machine. And I just keep thinking all the business possibilities you have with this. Or of course, if you just want to use it for your hobby, that is also super cool how much variety it has. Now don't forget to check out the description box below the video with links and codes if you want to check it out for yourself. Oh, and last thing I have to mention as well, by the way, it's also really pretty. And it just so happens that purple is my favorite color. Orange is my husband's favorite color, and this machine is purple and orange. Could it be any more perfect? Anyway, obviously that's not important, but it is nice that it's a nice looking machine, especially if you're going to have it out permanently like I'm planning to, and also maybe even if you bring it to a market, it looks nice as well. Anyway, enough about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.